There is a reason, a very specific reason why you did not scroll past this moment. Out of all the noise, all the distractions, all the countless voices competing for your attention, this is what stopped you. Not by accident, not by curiosity alone, but by something deeper, something your spirit recognized before your mind could even understand it. And now, as these words reach you, there is a quiet tension building inside your chest. A subtle pull, a question forming that you can't quite explain. Why does this feel like it's speaking directly to me? That feeling is not random. He is watching, not in silence, not from a distance, but with focused attention, with divine authority, with a presence that does not miss a single detail of what is happening around you right now. Archangel Michael has stepped forward, and when he steps forward, it is never casual. This is not a message you stumbled upon. This is a message that found you, because something has been shifting around you, slowly at first, almost unnoticeable. A change in energy, a strange heaviness in conversations, a subtle discomfort in places that once felt normal. You tried to ignore it. You told yourself it was just stress, just overthinking, just a phase. But deep down you knew something wasn't right. You felt it in the way certain people started speaking to you differently. You noticed it in the way your focus kept getting pulled in directions that didn't feel aligned. You sensed it in the way your peace would disappear, not all at once, but in small, quiet pieces. And here's the part that's been bothering you the most. It's not coming from strangers. It's coming from someone close, someone familiar, someone you trust, someone whose presence feels normal on the surface, but something about it has started to feel off. You couldn't explain it. You didn't want to assume the worst. You kept giving the benefit of the doubt. You kept telling yourself, no, it's probably nothing. But what if it's not nothing? What if that uneasiness you've been feeling is actually a warning? Because right now, in this exact moment, something is being revealed. This is what Archangel Michael is saying. Pay attention. The distraction is not random. It has been placed intentionally, and it is closer than you think. Let that settle. Because this is where everything begins to shift. The enemy does not always come loudly. He does not always show himself clearly. Sometimes he comes quietly, strategically, patiently, and most importantly, through proximity, through conversations that drain you instead of uplift you, through people who unknowingly pull your focus away from what truly matters, through situations that seem small, harmless, even normal, until you realize how much they've been slowing you down. And suddenly, things start to make sense. Why you've been feeling distracted lately. Why your energy has been inconsistent. Why your clarity hath been clouded at the exact moment you needed it most. This is not coincidence. This is interference. And you have been standing right in the middle of it without fully seeing it. Until now. That's why this message feels urgent. That's why it feels like it's pulling you in. Because this is not just information. This is an interruption. A divine interruption. A moment where everything pauses so you can finally see clearly. Because something is coming. Something that requires your focus, your awareness, your alignment. And if your attention stays scattered, if your energy keeps getting pulled in the wrong direction, you could miss what is meant for you. That's why this had to reach you now. Not later. Not tomorrow. Not when it's too late to correct it. Now. Because Archangel Michael is not just observing. He is warning. Warning you that the distraction is already active. Warning you that it is working subtly. Warning you that it is closer than you realize. But also he is protecting you. He is positioning you. He is calling you to wake up before the distraction turns into delay. So listen carefully. This is not the moment to ignore your intuition. This is not the moment to brush off what you've been feeling. This is not the moment to stay passive. This is the moment to become aware. Because the truth is about to unfold piece by piece. And what you're about to realize in the next section may change the way you see someone in your life forever. Type "I am aware" in the comments if you feel this message reaching you. Blessing code 1717 is now activated. There is something unsettling about realizing that not every distraction in your life comes from obvious sources. It would be easy if it did. It would be simpler if the interference showed up clearly labeled, loudly announced, and easy to reject. But that is not how it works. The deeper truth, the one that requires your full attention right now, is this. The most powerful distractions often come wrapped in familiarity. They come through voices you recognize, through people you have trusted, through relationships that once felt safe and certain. This is where the warning becomes more precise. This is where Archangel Michael leans closer, not to alarm you, but to sharpen your awareness. Because what you are facing is not loud chaos. It is quiet redirection. It is subtle influence. It is the kind of shift that does not immediately break your peace, but slowly chips away at it until you no longer recognize your own clarity. You have experienced this even if you have not fully named it. There have been conversations that left you feeling drained instead of uplifted, moments where your focus suddenly scattered after interacting with certain people, situations where your energy felt pulled in directions you did not intend to go. And each time, you tried to rationalize it. You told yourself they did not mean it that way. You convinced yourself it was just timing, just misunderstanding, just a normal part of life. But the pattern has been repeating. That is the key. It is not one moment. It is not one conversation. It is a pattern. A consistent shift in your energy that happens in connection with someone close to you. Someone whose presence does not immediately appear harmful, but whose influence leaves a residue you cannot ignore. You walk away from them feeling slightly off, slightly distracted, slightly disconnected from what you were focused on before. This is how hidden distraction operates. It does not demand your attention. It slowly redirects it. It does not confront your purpose. It quietly competes with it. It does not destroy your clarity in a single moment. It erodes it over time, piece by piece, until you begin to question your own direction. And here is the part that requires honesty. The person involved may not even be aware of what they are doing. That is what makes this so complex. Not every distraction is intentional. Not every influence is malicious on the surface. But that does not make it harmless. Because spiritual interference does not always require intention. It only requires access. Access to your time. Access to your attention. Access to your emotional space. Once that access is granted, even small disruptions can begin to take root. A comment that lingers longer than it should. A suggestion that pulls you away from your priorities. A subtle shift in tone that makes you second-guess yourself. These are not dramatic moments, but they accumulate. They build. They create a quiet fog around your focus. This is why you have felt a disconnect lately. Not a complete loss of direction, but a subtle confusion. A sense that you know where you are supposed to go, but something keeps pulling you slightly off course. You start something with clarity, but you do not finish it with the same intensity. You feel motivated, but that motivation fades faster than it used to. This is not weakness. This is interference. And the source of that interference is closer than you expected. The enemy understands something very clearly. Distance weakens influence, but proximity strengthens it. A stranger cannot easily distract you because you have no emotional investment in them. But someone close to you, someone whose words carry weight, someone whose presence feels normal, can shift your focus without you even realizing it. That is why the distraction is not obvious. It is embedded in routine. It is woven into daily interaction. It hides behind familiarity, making it difficult for you to recognize it as a threat. You are not looking for danger in places that feel comfortable, and that is exactly where it operates most effectively. But now, awareness is rising. Now, you are beginning to see the pattern for what it is. You are beginning to recognize the moments where your energy shifts, where your clarity fades, where your focus is redirected. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you become aware, the influence begins to lose its power. This is why this section matters so deeply, because you are not being asked to react with fear or suspicion. You are being called to observe with clarity, to notice without overreacting, to discern without immediately confronting. This is not about cutting people off impulsively. This is about understanding what is happening beneath the surface. Because the truth is, not everyone who is close to you is aligned with where you are going. Not everyone who has access to you is meant to influence you. And not every familiar voice is meant to guide your next step. This realization may feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Because your focus is too valuable to be scattered. Your direction is too important to be diluted. And your calling is too significant to be delayed by subtle, unnoticed distractions. So pay attention now. Watch how you feel after certain interactions. Notice where your energy goes. Observe what shifts your focus away from what truly matters. Because the next step is not just awareness. The next step is discernment. And what you are about to uncover in the next section will reveal why these distractions intensified at this exact moment in your life. Type "I discern the truth" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2222 is now activated. There is a shift that has already begun, and the truth is, you felt it long before you understood it. It did not arrive with noise. It did not announce itself with chaos. It came quietly, slipping into your routine, settling into your thoughts, weaving itself into your emotions in ways that were almost impossible to detect at first. But now, as you look back, you can trace it. You can see the pattern. You can recognize the moments where something inside you said, "This is not right," even when everything around you looked normal. This is the subtle shift, and it is not imagined. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity here, because this is the moment where confusion must give way to understanding. What you have been experiencing is not random emotional fluctuation. It is not simply stress or overthinking. It is a precise, strategic redirection of your inner state, designed to pull you away from clarity without ever making it obvious. Think about the last few weeks. There were moments when your focus felt sharp, when your purpose felt clear, when your energy aligned perfectly with what you knew you were supposed to do. And then, almost suddenly, something shifted. Not dramatically, but enough to interrupt your flow. A conversation that lingered in your mind longer than it should have. A feeling of doubt that appeared without clear reason. A sense of heaviness that replaced your usual momentum. You tried to push through it. You tried to ignore it. But it kept returning. That is because this shift is not external alone. It is internal. It is affecting your thoughts. It is influencing your emotions. It is interfering with your focus. And the most dangerous part is how subtle it is. You are not being stopped completely. You are being slowed. You are not being blocked entirely. You are being redirected in small, almost invisible ways. And over time, those small redirections begin to accumulate, creating distance between you and where you are meant to be. This is why you have felt inconsistent. One moment you are clear and motivated, and the next you feel scattered and uncertain. One moment you are aligned, and the next you are questioning things you were once confident about. This inconsistency is not a reflection of your ability. It is the result of interference working beneath the surface. And here is where it becomes even more important to understand. This shift did not begin on its own. It was triggered. It was activated through interaction, through proximity, through connection with someone whose presence has become a channel for distraction. You may not have wanted to see it. You may have resisted the idea. But your spirit has been trying to alert you. That feeling you get after certain conversations, that subtle drain, that quiet loss of clarity, that sense that your focus has been pulled away from what truly matters. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. You are being influenced. Not controlled, not overtaken, but influenced in ways that are just enough to create delay. And delay is the objective. Because if your focus can be delayed, your progress can be slowed. If your clarity can be clouded, your decisions can be weakened. If your energy can be scattered, your purpose can be postponed. The enemy does not need to destroy your path if he can simply distract you from walking it with full awareness. This is why the shift feels so frustrating. You know what you are capable of. You know the direction you are meant to move in. But something keeps interrupting that momentum. Something keeps pulling your attention sideways instead of forward. And now, the truth is becoming undeniable. This is not just about external circumstances. This is about internal disruption caused by external influence. The conversations that linger, the emotions that feel out of place, the thoughts that do not align with your usual clarity. All of these are signals. Signals that something has entered your space and is attempting to reshape your focus. But here is what you must understand in this moment. Awareness changes everything. The moment you recognize the shift, the moment you name it, the moment you see it for what it truly is, it begins to lose its power over you. Because what was once operating in subtlety is now being brought into clarity. And clarity is where your power returns. You are not as lost as you may have felt. You are not as distracted as it seemed. You are awakening to what has been influencing you. And that awareness is the beginning of realignment. This is the moment where you stop dismissing your intuition and start trusting it. This is the moment where you stop explaining away what feels wrong and start observing it with precision. Because the shift you have been feeling was never meant to confuse you permanently. It was meant to be recognized, understood, and overcome. And now, you are at that point. You are no longer unaware. You are no longer passive. You are beginning to see the pattern, and that changes the outcome entirely. But this is only the beginning. Because in the next section, Archangel Michael will reveal why this distraction has intensified now, at this exact moment in your life, and what it means for what is about to unfold next. Type ISE the shift in the comments if this is confirming what you've been feeling. Lesson code 3333 is now activated. As this revelation settles into your spirit, understand this. Every moment of clarity you receive here is not just for you. It is a seed meant to reach countless others who are still lost in confusion. When you choose to support this mission through Super Thanks with the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are sowing into a harvest of awakened souls. The word declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days, And this is that moment where your seed begins to move beyond what you can see. If your heart is stirring right now, this is your confirmation, your opportunity to act in alignment with what heaven is doing. Let your giving become a river that carries light into someone else's darkness. Do not delay this prompting, because obedience in this moment carries weight in the spirit. Release your seed now and watch how heaven responds to you. There comes a moment when subtlety is no longer enough. A moment when what was once hinted at must now be spoken with authority. That moment is now. You have sensed the shift. You have noticed the patterns. You have felt the quiet interference working beneath the surface of your daily life. But now, the message is no longer wrapped in mystery. Now, it is being delivered with clarity, precision, and unmistakable urgency. Archangel Michael steps forward not as a distant observer, but as a divine protector who sees what you cannot fully see yet. His voice carries weight not to frighten you, but to awaken you. Because what you are facing is not random, and it is not harmless. It is strategic, and strategy requires response. This is the moment where the warning becomes clear. The distraction in your life has not only been present, it has been placed with intention. Not necessarily by the person themselves in a conscious way, but through a spiritual alignment that has allowed influence to flow through them. This is why the situation feels confusing. This is why you have struggled to fully trust what you are sensing. Because on the surface, everything appears normal. But beneath the surface, something is working against your clarity. Michael speaks with authority. Do not ignore what your spirit has already identified. This is where many falter. Not because they lack awareness, but because they hesitate to act on it. You have already felt the disruption. You have already noticed the shift in your focus, the inconsistency in your energy, the subtle redirection of your attention. But you have also hesitated, questioning whether it is real, wondering if you are overanalyzing, hoping that it will resolve on its own. But this is not something that fades without recognition, because distraction thrives in denial. The longer you dismiss what you feel, the more room it has to operate. The more you explain it away, the more it embeds itself into your routine. And before you realize it, what started as a small shift becomes a pattern that shapes your behavior, your decisions, and your direction. This is why Michael steps in now. Not to accuse, not to create fear, but to bring definition to what has been undefined. To draw a clear line between what is aligned with your purpose and what is interfering with it. Because once that line is drawn, you can no longer move without awareness. You can no longer engage without understanding the impact. And that changes everything. There is something you must accept in this moment. Not every influence in your life is meant to remain. Not every connection is meant to continue in the same way it always has. Growth creates separation, not always physically, but energetically. As you begin to align more deeply with your purpose, anything that does not align with that frequency begins to feel different. A difference is what you have been sensing. It is not rejection. It is not disloyalty. It is alignment shifting. And when alignment shifts, friction appears. This friction is what you have been experiencing in subtle ways. Conversations that feel slightly off. Interactions that leave you feeling less clear than before. Moments where your focus is interrupted in ways that seem small but accumulate over time. These are not random inconveniences. They are indicators. Indicators that something is no longer in harmony with where you are going. Michael's warning is direct. If you do not recognize the source, you will continue to experience the effect. This is the turning point. Because now, you are no longer dealing with vague discomfort. You are being asked to identify the source of that discomfort. not with judgment, not with emotional reaction, but with clarity. To observe who or what consistently shifts your energy away from your purpose. To notice where your focus is being redirected and why. This requires honesty. It requires you to acknowledge what you have felt without filtering it through excuses or emotional attachment. Because attachment often blurs discernment. It makes you hold on to what no longer serves you simply because it once did. It makes you justify patterns that are no longer aligned simply because they are familiar. But familiarity does not equal alignment. And this is where the warning becomes powerful. Because once you see the misalignment, you are given a choice. You can continue engaging in the same way, allowing the distraction to persist, or you can begin to shift your response. Not necessarily through confrontation, not through sudden drastic action, but through awareness that changes how you interact, how you respond, and how much access you allow. This is where your power returns. Because the distraction only works when it is unrecognized. Once it is seen, once it is understood, it begins to lose its ability to influence you in the same way. The conversations no longer carry the same weight. The subtle shifts in energy become noticeable instead of absorbing. The redirection of your focus becomes something you can correct instead of something that controls you. This is the intervention. This is the moment where Michael does not remove the situation for you, but equips you to see it clearly enough that it no longer has the same hold over you. Because true protection is not just removal. It is awareness that prevents repetition. And now, you are stepping into that awareness. But there is still more to understand. Because in the next section, the deeper mechanism behind this distraction will be revealed. Not just what is happening, but how it operates through others, how it maintains its influence, and why it has been able to persist for as long as it has. Type I receive the warning in the comments if you are ready to see clearly. Lesson code 4444 is now activated. Now the surface has been revealed, but what lies beneath is even more critical for you to understand. Because what you are facing is not just a situation, not just a person, not just a pattern of uncomfortable interactions. It is a mechanism, a spiritual operation that has been carefully designed to function in a way that avoids detection while still producing results. This is where Archangel Michael brings deeper clarity, not just to show you that distraction exists, but to expose how it actually works. Because once you understand the mechanism, you are no longer reacting blindly. You begin to see the structure behind the interference, and that awareness changes how you move completely. The spirit of distraction does not operate with force. It does not need to. It operates through repetition, through subtle influence, and through emotional access. It understands that if it can gain a small opening into your attention, it can begin to redirect your focus little by little. It does not aim to overwhelm you immediately. It aims to normalize the shift. This is why the distractions you have experienced feel so ordinary on the surface. A conversation here, a comment there, a moment of doubt, a subtle emotional reaction that seems small in isolation. None of these things appear significant on their own. But together, they form a pattern, a consistent redirection of your mental and emotional energy away from what truly matters. And the key to this operation is proximity. The closer the source, the more effective the influence. Because when someone is close to you, you lower your guard. You allow their words to carry more weight. You give their opinions more consideration. You engage more deeply, more openly, more consistently. And without realizing it, you create a channel through which influence can flow freely. This is not about blame. This is about awareness. Because the person involved may not even realize the role they are playing. They may believe they are simply expressing themselves, sharing their thoughts, interacting as they always have. But beneath that surface interaction, something else is happening. Something that uses those moments as entry points to shift your focus. This is how the spirit of distraction hides. It hides behind normalcy. It does not announce itself. It blends in. It becomes part of your routine, part of your daily interactions, part of your emotional landscape. And over time, it begins to feel familiar, even expected. You start to accept the subtle drain as normal. You begin to tolerate the slight confusion as part of life. You adjust to the inconsistency in your energy without questioning where it is coming from. But now, that pattern is being exposed. Because the truth is, distraction is not just about losing focus. It is about losing alignment. It is about being slowly pulled away from the clarity and direction that you were meant to walk in. And once alignment is compromised, everything else becomes more difficult. Decisions become harder. Progress becomes slower. Confidence becomes unstable. This is not coincidence. This is operation. And here is where it becomes even more important to recognize the emotional component. The spirit of distraction does not work through logic alone. It works through feeling, through subtle emotional shifts that alter how you perceive situations, how you respond to people, and how you interpret your own thoughts. A simple comment can trigger doubt. A casual remark can linger in your mind longer than it should. An interaction can leave you feeling slightly unsettled without clear reason. These emotional responses are not random. They are entry points. Once your emotional state is influenced, your focus follows. And once your focus shifts, your actions begin to change. You start to delay things you would normally act on. You begin to second-guess decisions you would normally make confidently. You lose momentum in areas where you were once consistent. This is how distraction achieves its goal. Not by stopping you completely, but by slowing you down enough that you lose the rhythm of your progress. And this is why it hasn't been effective for as long as it has. Because it did not feel like a direct attack. It felt like life. It felt like normal interaction. Normal emotion. Normal fluctuation. But now, you are seeing beyond that. And now, you are recognizing the pattern for what it truly is. And that recognition is where the shift begins. Because once you understand how distraction operates, you can no longer engage with it in the same unconscious way. You begin to observe more carefully. You begin to notice when your energy shifts and why. You begin to identify which interactions leave you aligned and which ones pull you away from that alignment. And most importantly, you begin to protect your focus with intention. This is where control returns to you. Not control over others, but control over your own attention, your own energy, your own direction. And that is what breaks the cycle. Because distraction cannot operate effectively where awareness is active. It cannot maintain influence where observation is consistent. It cannot redirect what is being consciously guarded. This is why this revelation is so important. Because it is not just showing you what has been happening. It is equipping you to prevent it from continuing. But there is still a deeper question that must be answered. Why you? Why has this distraction been directed toward you at this specific moment in your life? Because the answer to that question will reveal something even more powerful about your purpose, your path, and what is about to unfold next. Type "I protect my focus" in the comments if you receive this truth. Lesson code 5555 is now activated. Now the question rises to the surface, and it is a question your spirit has been asking even before your mind could form the words. Why you? Why has this distraction found its way into your life at this exact moment? Why has the interference been so persistent, so calculated, so precisely timed to affect your focus when you needed clarity the most? This is where the truth becomes both revealing and empowering. Because the answer is not rooted in weakness. It is not rooted in failure. It is not because you are vulnerable in the way you may have feared. The answer is far more significant than that. You were targeted because you are moving. Archangel Michael makes this clear with unwavering authority. The distraction did not appear randomly. It intensified because something within you began to shift toward alignment. Something within you started to rise, to awaken, to move in a direction that carries weight beyond what you can currently see. And that movement created attention. Not all attention is visible. Not all attention comes from people who openly acknowledge your growth. Some of it exists in the unseen, in the patterns that begin to shift when you step closer to your purpose. The moment you began to think differently, to act with more intention, to align your energy with something greater than your past patterns, that moment signaled a change. And change attracts resistance. This is not resistance meant to destroy you. It is resistance meant to delay you. Because delay is often more effective than direct opposition. If your progress can be slowed, if your focus can be scattered, if your clarity can be clouded, then your momentum weakens without you even realizing it. This is why the distraction came through proximity. Because distance would not have been effective. A distant influence would not have had access to your daily thoughts, your emotional space, your consistent attention. But someone close, someone familiar, someone whose presence you naturally allow, that is where influence becomes powerful. You were not chosen randomly for this experience. You were positioned. Positioned in a way that your growth would intersect with this test. Positioned in a way that your awareness would be required to move forward. Positioned in a way that you would have to develop discernment, not just direction. Because direction without discernment is vulnerable. And this is where your calling begins to reveal itself more clearly. You are not meant to move blindly. You are not meant to follow every influence, to absorb every opinion, to engage with every voice that surrounds you. Your path requires clarity. It requires focus. It requires a level of awareness that filters what enters your space and what remains outside of it. This is why the distraction feels so personal. Because it is connected to someone within your circle. Someone who has access, someone who has influence, someone whose presence had been part of your routine. And now, that presence has become part of your test. Not to harm you, but to refine you. This is the distinction that must be understood. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Prepared to recognize what aligns with your purpose and what does not. Prepared to separate emotional attachment from spiritual alignment. Prepared to move forward with clarity, even when familiarity tries to pull you backward. And this preparation is necessary because of where you are going. There is a shift ahead of you. A level of clarity, progress, and alignment that requires you to be fully present, fully focused, and fully aware. And anything that disrupts that focus, no matter how small it may seem, becomes significant. This is why the distraction intensified now. Because you are closer than you realize. Closer to a breakthrough in your thinking. Closer to a shift in your direction. Closer to a level of clarity that will change how you move entirely. And proximity to breakthrough often attracts distraction. Not to stop you completely, but to see if you will recognize it. To see if you will remain aligned or if you will allow your focus to be redirected just enough to create delay. This is your moment of recognition. This is where you understand that what you have been experiencing is not random interference, but a reflection of your movement toward something greater. The resistance you feel is evidence that your direction matters. The distraction you have encountered is confirmation that your focus holds value. And now, you are being asked to protect that value, to guard your attention, to observe your interactions, to recognize where your energy is being pulled and why. Because your calling is not something that unfolds automatically. It requires participation. It requires awareness. It requires the ability to see beyond what is comfortable and into what is true. And truth does not always align with familiarity. This is why this moment is critical. Because you are no longer unaware of what has been happening. You are no longer moving without understanding the forces that have been influencing your focus. You are stepping into a level of awareness that changes how you engage with everything around you. And that awareness is what moves you forward. But there is still one more layer to uncover. Because in the next section, you will see how comfort itself can become the very thing that keeps you connected to distraction, and why letting go of that comfort is not loss, but alignment with where you are truly meant to go. Type "I am chosen" for clarity in the comments if you receive this message. Wesson code 6666 is now surrounding you. There is a truth that is difficult to accept, not because it is unclear, but because it touches something deeply rooted within you. It challenges the way you have defined loyalty, the way you have measured connection, and the way you have justified staying in environments that once felt right but no longer feel aligned. This is the moment where that truth rises, and it cannot be ignored any longer. Because not every place you feel comfortable in is meant for your next level. Archangel Michael speaks with a steady authority here, not to disrupt your peace, but to redefine it. Because what you have been calling comfort may not actually be peace. What you have been holding onto as loyalty may not actually be alignment. And what you have been tolerating out of familiarity may be the very thing limiting your growth. This is the dangerous comfort zone. It does not feel like danger. It feels like normal. It feels like history, like shared experiences, like emotional bonds that have been built over time. It feels like something you are supposed to protect, something you are supposed to maintain, something you are not supposed to question. But within that comfort, something has quietly shifted. You have grown. Your thinking has changed. Your awareness has expanded. Your direction is no longer the same as it once was. And with that growth comes a subtle but undeniable truth. Not everything that was once aligned with you will remain aligned as you move forward. This is where conflict begins to form. Not loud conflict, not obvious disagreement, but internal tension. A feeling that something is no longer fitting the way it used to. Conversations that once felt natural now feel slightly forced. Interactions that once energized you now leave you feeling drained. Connections that once felt supportive now feel like they are holding you in place. This tension is not random. It is the result of growth meeting resistance. Because growth changes your frequency, and when your frequency changes, everything around you is affected. Some things will rise with you. Some will remain where they are. And the space between those two realities is where discomfort begins. This is the moment where loyalty becomes a question. Not loyalty in the sense of abandoning people, but loyalty in the sense of how much you are willing to compromise your alignment to maintain familiarity. How much you are willing to ignore what you feel in order to preserve what you have always known. How much you are willing to stay connected in the same way, even when that connection is no longer supporting your direction. This is where many remain stuck. Because leaving a situation that feels comfortable, even if it is limiting, is far more difficult than staying in it. Staying requires less change. It requires less confrontation with your own growth. It allows you to avoid the discomfort of redefining your boundaries, of adjusting your interactions, of stepping into a version of yourself that no longer fits within the same patterns. But staying also comes with a cost that is not immediately visible but becomes clear over time. It shows up as delayed progress, as lost focus, as the subtle but consistent feeling that you are not moving at the pace you are capable of. It shows up as frustration, as confusion, as the sense that something is holding you back even when you are trying to move forward. This is the limitation hidden within comfort. And this is where Michael's message becomes firm. Do not confuse loyalty with stagnation, because true alignment does not require you to remain in a state that no longer supports your growth. True connection does not demand that you ignore what you feel in order to maintain what is familiar. And true purpose does not unfold in environments that consistently pull you away from your focus. This does not mean you must subtly remove people from your life. It does not mean drastic action or emotional reaction. It means awareness. It means recognizing where your energy is being held in place, where your focus is being redirected, where your growth is being subtly resisted. It means understanding that boundaries are not betrayal. They are alignment. And alignment requires adjustment. You may need to change how often you engage. You may need to shift the depth of your interactions. You may need to observe more and react less. You may need to create space where there was once constant access. These changes are not rejection. They are refinement. Because your path forward requires clarity. And clarity cannot exist in environments where your focus is consistently diluted. This is the moment where you step out of unconscious comfort and into conscious alignment. Where you stop maintaining connections in the same way simply because they have always been that way. Where you begin to move with intention, allowing your growth to guide your decisions rather than your past patterns. This is not easy, but it is necessary. Because what lies ahead of you cannot be reached while holding on to what is keeping you in place. Your next level requires space. It requires focus. It requires a version of you that is not bound by the need to maintain comfort at the cost of progress. And now, you are being called to step into that version. But the process is not complete yet. Because in the next section, you will be guided into the moment of discernment, where seeing clearly becomes the key to everything that follows, and where your ability to recognize truth beyond appearance will determine how you move forward from here. Type "I release limitation" in the comments if you are ready to move forward. Blessing code 7777 is now activated. Here's a moment in every awakening where observation is no longer enough. A moment where simply noticing patterns, feeling shifts, and recognizing discomfort must transform into something deeper. That moment is discernment. And this is where everything begins to change. Because discernment is not just awareness. It is the ability to see beyond what is visible, to understand beyond what is spoken, and to recognize truth even when it is hidden behind familiarity. It is the difference between sensing something is off and knowing exactly what it is and how it is affecting you. Archangel Michael speaks with precision here, because this is the turning point in your journey through this message. You have already felt the shift. You have already identified the distraction. You have already begun to understand how it operates. But now, you are being called to see clearly, to see with spiritual eyes. This kind of vision does not rely on surface behavior. It does not depend on what people say or how situations appear externally. It goes deeper. It observes the energy behind words, the intention behind actions, the effect behind interactions. It asks not just what is happening, but what is this producing within me? This is where your power lies. Because when you begin to observe outcomes instead of appearances, everything reveals itself. A conversation that seems harmless on the surface can be identified by the way it leaves you feeling. An interaction that appears normal can be understood by the way it shifts your focus. A connection that feels familiar can be evaluated by whether it aligns with your direction or pulls you away from it. This is discernment in action. It is quiet. It is steady. It does not rush to judgment, but it does not ignore what it sees. It allows you to move with clarity instead of confusion, with intention instead of reaction. And this is what you are stepping into now. You are no longer relying on assumptions. You are no longer dismissing what you feel. You are beginning to observe your environment with a level of awareness that changes how you engage with everything around you. You notice the patterns more quickly. You recognize the shifts more clearly. You understand the impact of certain interactions without needing external confirmation. This is not overthinking. This is alignment sharpening your perception. And as this perception sharpens, something else begins to happen. The same situations that once confused you begin to make sense. The same interactions that once drained you begin to lose their effect. The same patterns that once repeated without recognition begin to stand out clearly. Because once you see, you cannot go back to not seeing. This is why this moment is so critical. Because discernment does not just reveal truth. It demands response. Not reaction, not confrontation, but response. A conscious adjustment in how you engage, how you allow access, how you protect your focus. You begin to choose where your energy goes instead of allowing it to be pulled without awareness. This is where your alignment strengthens. Because distraction relies on unconscious engagement. It requires you to participate without realizing the effect. But discernment interrupts that cycle. It places awareness between stimulus and response. It gives you the space to decide instead of react. And in that space, everything changes. You begin to withdraw from what drains you, not with hostility, but with clarity. You begin to invest more into what aligns with you, not with force, but with intention. You begin to move differently, speak differently, think differently, because you are no longer operating from assumption. You are operating from understanding. This is the shift, and it is happening within you right now. But there is something even deeper that must be understood. Discernment is not just about recognizing others. It is also about recognizing yourself. Recognizing when you are being pulled into patterns that do not serve you. Recognizing when your focus is slipping. Recognizing when your energy is being scattered. Because the greatest protection is not external removal. It is internal awareness. And now, that awareness is active within you. You are not the same as you were before this message. You are not moving with the same level of unconscious engagement. You are beginning to see, to understand, to adjust. And that adjustment is what will carry you forward. Because what lies ahead requires clarity, and clarity is built through discernment. But the journey does not stop here. Because in the next section, you will be guided into a step that many struggle to take, the step of separation without guilt, where obedience to your alignment becomes more important than maintaining connections that no longer serve your path. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if you receive this revelation. Blessing code 8888 is now activated around you. As your eyes open and discernment sharpens within you, understand this moment is not just for your awakening. It is a call to help awaken others who are still trapped in confusion. Every seed you release into this mission becomes a light in someone else's darkness, a torch that guides another soul into clarity. The word declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and right now, your giving becomes a prophetic act that multiplies truth across lives you may never meet. If your spirit is stirring, this is your moment, your invitation to step into alignment through action. I declare that every offering you release through Super Thanks with a PayPal link becomes a river of provision flowing back into your life. Do not hesitate in this sacred moment, because obedience carries power in the unseen realm. Step forward now and release your seed with faith, knowing heaven records every act. There is a weight that many carry without realizing it, a quiet pressure that keeps them tied to patterns, people, and environments long after those things have stopped serving their growth. It is not fear alone that keeps them there. It is not confusion alone that holds them in place. It is something deeper, something more subtle, something that feels almost righteous at first glance. It is obligation. And this is where the next shift must take place. Because what you are about to understand will challenge the way you have defined responsibility, loyalty, and connection. It will ask you to look beyond what feels expected and into what is actually aligned with your purpose. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity here, because this is the step where many hesitate. This is the step where awareness must turn into action. Not loud action, not dramatic reaction, but a quiet, firm realignment that begins within you. You have already seen the patterns. You have already recognized the distraction. You have already felt the shift in your energy and the way certain interactions pull you away from your clarity. But now comes the part that requires courage. Separation. Not necessarily physical distance, not immediate removal, but internal separation. A shift in how much access you allow, how deeply you engage, how much influence you permit to enter your space. And this is where guilt tries to rise. Because the mind begins to question. It begins to say, but this person has always been there. But this connection has history. But what will they think if I change how I interact? Is it wrong to step back? Am I being too distant? Am I overreacting? These questions are not random. They are the voice of obligation trying to override alignment. Because obligation keeps you connected to what is familiar, even when it is no longer beneficial. It convinces you that maintaining the same level of access is necessary, that adjusting your boundaries is unfair, that stepping back is somehow a form of rejection. But here is the truth that must be understood. Obedience to your alignment will always feel uncomfortable when you are used to operating from obligation. Because alignment requires change. It requires you to prioritize what is right for your growth over what is comfortable for others. It requires you to move in a way that reflects your awareness, not just your history. It requires you to honor what you now see, even if that means adjusting what has always been. This is not betrayal. This is obedience. And obedience is what moves you forward. Because every time you ignore what you feel in order to maintain comfort, you reinforce the very pattern that has been delaying you. Every time you dismiss your discernment to avoid discomfort, you allow the distraction to continue operating in your space. This is why separation is necessary. Not as punishment, not as rejection, but as protection. Protection of your focus. Protection of your clarity. Protection of your doerian. And this protection does not require confrontation. It does not require explanation in every case. It begins with internal decision. A quiet shift in how you engage, how you respond, how much of yourself you give in certain interactions. You begin to pull back, not with resentment, but with awareness. You begin to limit access, not with anger, but with intention. You begin to observe more and participate less where misalignment exists. This is what separation looks like. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is precise. And as you begin to move this way, something important happens. The influence that once affected you begins to weaken. The conversations that once lingered in your mind lose their hold. The interactions that once drained your energy begin to have less impact. The subtle redirection of your focus becomes easier to correct because you are no longer engaging with it in the same way. This is the power of alignment. It does not require force. It requires consistency. And this consistency begins with a decision. A decision to choose obedience over obligation. To choose clarity over comfort. To choose your path over patterns that no longer serve you. This is where your growth becomes visible, not just to you, but to the environment around you. Because when you change how you engage, the dynamic shifts. The patterns that once operated freely begin to lose their space. The distractions that once blended into your routine begin to stand out and fade. But there is something you must remember in this process. Not everyone will understand your shift. Not everyone will recognize the reason behind your change. Some may feel the distance. Some may question it. Some may even try to pull you back into the same level of engagement you had before. This is where your clarity must remain strong. Because this is not about their understanding. This is about your alignment. And alignment does not require validation from those who are not on the same path. It requires consistency from you. This is the moment where you stand in what you now know. Where you trust what you have seen. Where you honor the awareness that has been given to you through this message. Because you are not stepping away from connection. You are stepping into alignment. And alignment will always lead you forward. But the journey is not complete yet. Because in the next section, the unseen battle behind everything you have experienced will be revealed, showing you the spiritual dimension that has been operating beneath these patterns and how protection has been surrounding you even when you could not see it. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if you are ready to move forward without guilt. Blessing code 9999 is now activated. There is a layer to everything you have experienced that goes beyond what your eyes have seen, beyond what your mind has tried to explain, and beyond what your emotions have processed. It is a layer that has been active the entire time, even when you were unaware of it. And now, it is time for that layer to be revealed. Because what you have been facing is not only external interaction or internal confusion. It is a battle, not a physical one, not a visible one, but a spiritual one that has been operating behind the scenes, influencing patterns, guiding destructions, and attempting to interfere with your alignment in ways that are subtle yet intentional. Archangel Michael does not speak lightly when it comes to this. When he steps forward in this moment, it is not to create fear, but to bring understanding. Because without understanding, you may misinterpret what you have been experiencing. You may see it as coincidence, as personality conflict, as emotional fluctuation, when in reality, there has been something deeper at work. Spiritual warfare is not always dramatic. It does not always appear as chaos or crisis. In fact, its most effective form is quiet, controlled, and consistent. It operates in ways that blend into your daily life, making it difficult to distinguish between what is natural and what is influenced. This is why the distraction you have experienced felt so normal. Because it was designed to. It was designed to look like ordinary interaction, ordinary emotion, ordinary life. But beneath that surface, there has been a continuous effort to shift your focus, to dilute your clarity, to slow your progress without making the interference obvious. This is the nature of the battle. It is not about stopping you instantly. It is about weakening your momentum gradually. And the way it achieves this is through access. Access through proximity, access through conversation, access through emotional connection. The same channels that allow meaningful relationships to form can also be used to introduce subtle disruption when awareness is not active. But here is what must be understood in this moment. You have not been unprotected. Even while the distraction was operating, even while the patterns were forming, even while your focus was being pulled in different directions, there has been protection surrounding you. Protection that you could not see. Protection that did not remove every challenge, but ensured that you would not be overcome by it. Protection that allowed you to experience enough to recognize the pattern, but not enough to lose your direction completely. This is why you are still here. This is why your awareness has been rising instead of fading. This is why, despite the distraction, you have not completely lost your sense of purpose. Because there has been a force working in your favor, maintaining balance, preserving your clarity just enough for you to reach this moment. This is where the battle shifts, because awareness changes your position. Before, you were engaged in the situation without fully understanding the forces behind it. Now, you are seeing beyond the surface. You are recognizing that what you have been experiencing is not isolated to simple interaction. It is part of a larger dynamic that involves influence, access, and intention. And with that recognition, your role changes. You are no longer passive. You are no longer reacting without understanding. You are now participating with awareness. This is what disrupts the cycle, because spiritual interference relies on unconscious engagement. It depends on you responding without recognizing what is influencing you. But once you become aware, once you begin to observe not just what is happening but why it is happening, the effectiveness of that interference begins to diminish. This is where your strength lies. Not in force, not in confrontation, but in clarity. Clarity that allows you to remain steady even when subtle disruption attempts to pull you off course. Clarity that enables you to recognize when your focus is being redirected and to bring it back intentionally. Clarity that keeps you aligned with your direction even when external influences attempt to create confusion. This is how you move through the battle. Not by fighting every interaction, not by reacting to every shift, but by maintaining awareness that prevents you from being drawn into patterns that do not serve your purpose. And as you begin to move in this way, something important happens. The same influences that once affected you begin to lose their impact. The same patterns that once repeated begin to break. The same distractions that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable, even insignificant, because the power of the interference was never in its size. It was in its subtlety. And once subtlety is replaced with awareness, its influence weakens. This is the position you are stepping into now. A position of awareness, of clarity, of alignment that changes how you experience everything around you. You are no longer navigating blindly. You are moving with understanding. But there is still one final shift ahead, because in the next section, you will see how everything you have experienced is leading to a decisive moment, a shift that will determine whether distraction continues to delay you or whether you step fully into the direction that has been waiting for you. Type "I am protected" in the battle in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 1010 is now surrounding you. There is a moment approaching, and it is closer than you think. A moment where everything you have been sensing, everything you have been uncovering, everything you have been slowly becoming aware of will converge into a single point of decision. This is not a distant event. This is not something reserved for the future. This is something that is already forming around you, quietly, steadily, with a precision that you can feel but may not yet fully understand. Because what is coming is not just another phase. It is a shift. Archangel Michael speaks with unmistakable urgency here, because this is where everything becomes real. This is where the awareness you have gained must translate into action, into movement, into a clear choice between two paths that are beginning to separate more visibly with each passing moment. The path of distraction and the path of destiny. You have been standing between them. Not intentionally, not knowingly, but through the subtle patterns that have been influencing your focus, through the interactions that have been pulling your attention in different directions, through the moments where your clarity was present but not fully protected. But now that space between the two paths is narrowing, you can feel it. There is a growing sense that something is about to change, that something is about to require more of you, that the way you have been moving will no longer be sufficient for where you are going. This feeling is not pressure without purpose. It is preparation. Because destiny does not wait for perfect conditions. It responds to alignment. And alignment requires decision. This is where the weight of this moment becomes clear. Because you cannot move fully into what is ahead of you while remaining partially connected to what has been distracting you. You cannot carry both paths forward at the same time. At some point, one must be chosen with intention. This is that point. And this is why the distractions intensified before this moment. Because when a shift is near, interference increases. When clarity is about to solidify, confusion attempts to expand. When focus is about to sharpen, distractions try to scatter it one last time. This is not coincidence. This is timing. And you are in the middle of it. You may have noticed that the distractions recently have felt more persistent, more noticeable, more difficult to ignore. The interactions that once seemed small now feel more significant. The shifts in your energy are easier to detect. The pull away from your focus feels stronger, more deliberate. This is because the moment of decision is approaching. And in that moment, your response will determine your direction. Not permanently, but significantly. Because every decision you make in awareness carries weight. It reinforces the path you are choosing. It strengthens the alignment you are committing to. It either moves you closer to your purpose or keeps you circulating within patterns that no longer serve you. This is where you must be honest with yourself. Not about what feels comfortable. Not about what is familiar. But about what is aligned. You already know what pulls you away from your focus. You already recognize the patterns that disrupt your clarity. You already feel the difference between what supports your direction and what slows it down. This is not new information. This is confirmation. And confirmation requires response. Because awareness without action creates stagnation. It leaves you in a place where you see clearly but do not move differently. Where you understand the pattern, but continue to participate in it. Where you recognize the distraction, but do not adjust your engagement with it. That is not where you are meant to remain. You are being called forward. Called to step fully into the direction that has been waiting for you. The direction that requires your full attention, your full clarity, your full presence. And that direction cannot be accessed halfway. It requires commitment. This is where destiny begins to take shape. Not as a distant concept, but as a series of decisions that align you more closely with where you are meant to go. Decisions to protect your focus. Decisions to adjust your interactions. Decisions to prioritize what truly matters over what simply feels comfortable. And as you begin to make these decisions, something powerful happens. Momentum returns. Clarity strengthens. Energy stabilizes. Because you are no longer divided. You are no longer allowing your focus to be pulled in opposing directions. You are choosing a path and moving in it with intention. This is the shift. And it is already beginning. But there is one final step that remains. Because in the next section, everything will come together into a clear and direct call, a moment where you are no longer observing or understanding, but fully stepping into the version of yourself that is ready to rise above distraction and walk boldly in your purpose. Type "I choose destiny" in the comments if you are ready to step forward. Blessing code 1111 is now activated. This is the moment everything has been leading to. Not the beginning, not the middle, but the point where everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything you have recognized must now become something more than understanding. It must become transformation. Because truth without movement does not change your life. Awareness without action does not shift your direction. And clarity without commitment does not lead you into your purpose. This is the final call. Archangel Michael does not whisper here. His presence stands firm, his voice unwavering, his message direct. Because there is no more space for hesitation. There is no more room for delay. The time for observing has passed. The time for deciding has arrived. You have seen the distraction. You have felt the shift. You have recognized the influence. You have understood the pattern. Now you must choose. Not with words, not with temporary intention, but with your actions, with your focus, with the way you move from this moment forward. Because the life you step into next will be shaped by the decisions you make right now. This is where you rise. Not above people, not above situations, but above the patterns that once held your focus. Above the subtle distractions that once redirected your energy. Above the unconscious engagement that allowed influence to operate without awareness. This is where you reclaim your focus. Because your focus is your power. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy flows, your progress is built. And where your progress is built, your future begins to take shape. This is why distraction was sent in the first place. Not because you are weak, but because your focus is valuable. And now, you are taking that value back. You are no longer allowing your attention to be scattered. You are no longer engaging with everything that pulls at you. You are no longer maintaining patterns simply because they are familiar. You are choosing intentionally. You are moving consciously. You are aligning fully. This is the shift. And as you step into this alignment, something begins to change immediately. Clarity sharpens. Decisions become easier. Your energy stabilizes. The things that once confused you no longer hold the same power. The distractions that once felt strong begin to feel distant. The patterns that once repeated begin to break. Because you are no longer feeding them. This is what happens when you rise. Not everything around you changes instantly, but your relationship with it does. And that is what creates transformation. Because once you stop engaging with what does not serve you, it begins to lose its place in your life. This is where your path opens. Because your path was never blocked, but with waiting. Waiting for your focus to return. Waiting for your awareness to activate. Waiting for you to step into alignment with the direction that has always been available to you. And now, you are stepping into it. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of a new way of moving. A way of moving with clarity, with intention, with awareness that protects your focus and strengthens your direction. You will still encounter distractions. You will still face moments where your attention is tested. But now, you are different. Now you see. Now, you understand. Now you choose. And that choice is what sets you apart. Because not everyone reaches this moment. Not everyone recognizes the pattern. Not everyone steps into alignment when the truth is revealed. But you have. And that is why this message reached you. Not to entertain you. Not to momentarily inspire you. But to position you. To bring you into a place where you are no longer reacting to your life, but actively shaping it through your awareness, your decisions, and your focus. This is your confirmation. This is your activation. This is your moment. Do not return to what you have already outgrown. Do not reconnect with patterns that have already been revealed. Do not ignore the clarity that has been placed in front of you. Move forward with purpose, with confidence, with unwavering focus, because what is ahead of you requires nothing less. Type "I rise above distraction" in the comments if you receive this final call. Blessing code 1212 is now fully activated around your life. As this final call settles into your spirit, understand this is not just your awakening. It is a mission being extended through you into the lives of others who are still trapped in distraction. Every seed you release becomes a flame of truth that reaches someone still walking in confusion, someone still searching for clarity. The word declares, "Whoever sows generously will also reap generously," and this is your moment to move in obedience, not hesitation. I speak this over you now. As you give through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description and QR code, heaven multiplies your seed into provision, clarity, and divine alignment. If your spirit has been stirred throughout this message, this is your first-person moment to act, to step forward and say, "I will help carry this light further." Do not hold back in this sacred exchange, because what you release now becomes a harvest in places you cannot yet see. Act now, sow now, and let your obedience echo beyond this moment.